From Ticker, this is Black Belt Leader. Here's Karen Gately.
Welcome to Black Belt Leader. I'm Karen Gately, founder of Corporate Dojo. On the show today, we'll be discussing all things to do with our mind. In particular, we'll be looking at how to build mental strength. We will have a special guest on, Chris Caiger-Watson, to share his insights to a journey he's about to take that's going to take some real toughness in mind. We're also joined by our regular psychotherapist, Heidi Rogers, who will also be helping us to understand how our unconscious mind plays a big role in the world of business or in any pursuit in life. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Really
me.
excited to have you here. Chris, we're going to get started by talking about the journey you're on. So I'm very excited to be announcing to everyone that Chris is about to put his body through quite a lot in order to support the good people of Malakuta.
Yes. Brave but stupid decision in some ways. But my family are from Malakuta, my wife's family, so heavily impacted as a lot of the Gippsland region were by the fires. Pretty passionate about the lack of support from the charities and the amount of money that's been raised and not being apportioned.
Not getting through.
So I thought if I could get the strength of my mind right, what can we do? So I've decided in my infinite wisdom to run from Melbourne to the Lakes entrance, which I think is roughly about 320 kilometres in the space.
I get tired thinking about driving that,
Yeah.
let alone running that.
Yeah, well, we're not quite doing Malakuta, but I think for me, that day that the big announcement, 75,000 people had to be evacuated and so on, we were in the car with two children, my mum over from the UK at the time, we were actually had evacuated and left. So I think it'd be a significant, poignant thing to go back down to the Lakes entrance. So it's 318 Ks in 10 days.
Wow.
And really the furthest I've ran is a half marathon 2 years ago.
Okay.
At 8 weeks' notice.
Okay.
And as you can see, I've got a fair bit of work to do. Very, very passionate about it. We're going to do that in September.
Great.
Start on the 15th of September and got 10 days to get it done. So
Great.
very exciting.
Well, we thought this was a fantastic opportunity. The starting point obviously is to decide that we're going to do something as tough as that, and clearly the passion matters as a starting point, which is a great opportunity while Heidi's here, perhaps some free online therapy.
Yes.
We can unpack whether or not you are crazy or not. I doubt it.
Yes.
But critically, we can talk about, how do we prepare for something like that? So perhaps Chris, start by helping us to understand what you are doing, and then we'll throw to Heidi and she can tell you whether or not you're doing enough.
Yes. Look, I think the science behind it is fantastic. I think this actually started from a couple of friends of mine that did a similar journey. That I think they did 10 marathons in 12 days and raised $50,000 for MND.
Wow.
Their purpose and their drive was through some bereavement.
Yeah.
I was just amazed by the journey that they went on and how they did it, and I thought, right, I'm going to try and do something like that. And we were talking earlier about that little voice in your head.
Yeah.
It can either be a very chastening thing or a very liberating thing. The behavioural psychology side of things is key to these sort of things.
Yeah.
And the belief and the structure. So it's going to be a hell of a journey physically, mentally. I think the first step is deciding, right, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Then going on live television to announce it.
Yes.
And then you haven't really got a choice
And
but
then
to do it, you see.
Now your voice is going, now I have to do it
Yes.
because I'm going to be held accountable to everybody at least who's watched this show.
That's exactly right.
But look, again, I see that all day, every day in the world of business, right? Things can absolutely be tough. But the more we sit on the sideline and go, oh, that is tough, and allow that voice that tells us that to win, the longer we're going to sit on the sideline and not step into that potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Heidi, what's your advice? If we are wanting to do something particularly challenging, how do we start to get those voices in our heads to tell us the right stuff?
I think you first have to think about, which you were saying earlier, what the voices are saying. So since you already have identified, like when your voice says, you can't do that, that's ridiculous, you're ludicrous to think of doing something like that. The fact that you've identified, okay, so what I often do with clients is we make a list on the left-hand side of what are all the automatic thoughts that my brain is telling me. I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm not qualified, I don't have a degree, or I've never run a marathon before, whatever the stuff is. And then on the right, you change it to an alternate thought of what can I think instead. And then the goal is basically that, and what always happens is the alternate thought column becomes your automatic thoughts. And that's just through time and patience and doing it repeatedly, because neural pathways are just built on repetition. So you could really lie to yourself about anything, but with this, if you just say like, I'm doing the training, I'll get there, or I'll do my best, or you can have ones that you don't, like, you're not necessarily saying, I'm going to be the best marathoner in the world, or you're not saying that, but you're saying I'm going to do my best and I'm going to try hard and I can do hard things. And those are then the, say, 3 things that you just say over and over and over. So every time the little voice comes up, that's what the first thing you think is, no, like, shut up, voice. I can do hard things, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm training hard. And that's what you focus on.
Love it. And I've certainly can relate to that as a martial artist, you know, that you could choose to turn up to the World Championships and think, I'm in big trouble here, I'm about to be punched in the face. Or you can think, I've done the training and I'm going to back myself, you know. And one of the things I see make a very big difference for people is the belief that they can work it out. That even if they're not fully equipped, even if they're not fully prepared, that they'll find the ways through, you know, whether it be that weak moment or that confusion or whatever it might be.
Because where your focus goes, your energy flows. So if your focus is on I can't and it's going to be hard, that's exactly what's going to happen. You know, and we all know this, you know.
Well, I don't
think we necessarily do.
I think we forget it. I think we forget it
in the moment, right? Because you're right. From a theory perspective, we might all know, choose our thoughts, choose our attitudes, but having the discipline to actually do it in the moment is the really tough stuff.
I think as well, for a lot of people, I think everyone has these little thoughts that they can achieve something or they want to achieve something. I've always wanted to do something big like this, and I think because of the publicity around the fires at the moment, it's probably got it's a great opportunity to generate a little bit more sponsorship and things for the people that need it. But I think, you know, a thought becomes an emotion becomes a behaviour for people. So I think if you've got that insatiable curiosity around that thought, I think, you know, becoming a father a few years ago, it changes your perspective. Your values of what's important, you know, how you're looking after yourself, all of those sort of things. And I think where this has led me to sitting here now talking about it is you look at it from a different lens, a different perspective. Well, what if? So, okay, yes, I feel, and I can sit here talking to you about it now. I still have that little voice saying, you are not good enough to do this. You cannot do this. It's 6 months' notice. You know. But actually, I'm almost playing a game with it. Because I'm almost sitting there going, okay, because I can actually feel that becoming an emotion. Whereas now I'm looking at it from a slightly different lens of saying, oh, what if I did do it? What if I did impact on some families that have lost everything? And I know family and friends that have lost everything. So, you know, I've watched them and seen them go through it. My sister-in-law was on the front page of The Age, getting on a helicopter, being evacuated out with my nephew from Malakuta. So I think, looking at it from a slightly different perspective, what if? Well, how would I feel if I did that? What would that give me? What are those emotions? And actually, if you sit with it, I'd love to understand the science of this, because, you know, you feel it, and then I'm looking at the emotions of how I will feel when I've done it, as opposed to, well, how I might feel if I don't do it. And I know which one I'd rather have in 6 months.
Absolutely agree. So what is your insight to that? What's going on there?
What's interesting about that is the discomfort piece. So whenever we go into a space of discomfort, of feeling either I'm not good enough or anxious at the thought, when your brain starts to visualize actually doing that amount of running, the discomfort is then what leads us to going, no, and stopping it and shutting it down. Whereas what you're doing, which is very intuitive and smart, you focused on what we call an anchor point. So you focused on the end. So like say people have a fear of flying, the anchor point is arriving home and my dog greeting me. So for you, you're focusing on how am I going to feel at the end, and the people in the community, and visualizing that, like, yay, you did this, you know, that kind of thing, which is awesome. Because,
the ego.
But like, no, you raised awareness, all that other stuff. But by focusing on what I want or where I'm going to be, that's so smart, because then your amygdala, the whole safety security part of your brain, who's going to shut everything down, will actually get on board, because what you're showing it is happy, safe, positive. Whereas if you focus on this is hard and that's hard and what about this and and all of that stuff, amygdala goes, yeah, stupid idea.
Yeah.
But if you focus on the positive, then amygdala's like, yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Does that make
sure.
sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's what you delete and distort from these things as well, because I think, you know, my psychology journey sort of started through some grief. And I think the journey of really getting through that and understanding why you're feeling the way you're feeling is because you delete and distort certain aspects of those memories or those situations, as opposed to reflecting on the really happy, positive side.
Yes.
And it takes a very long time psychology-wise for people to realise that. So now, you know, I'm really sort of sitting there, even at the gym at 7 in the morning on Saturday, I was sitting there with all these thoughts. It's almost like my body wanted me to get out of the gym and go and sit in the sauna. I'd only been in there 15 minutes. So I was sort of, well, why? No, hang on. And then you really pre-frame it, look at it from a different lens, and then you have a greater sense of satisfaction. And more importantly, self-respect at the end of it.
Because you've worked through those thoughts.
Yeah, you're writing it down. It's like a little gremlin.
It is absolutely fascinating. Even sitting here listening to you, talking about this journey, you know, and having those arguments is so fascinating. You know, we are incredible human beings, and there's certainly been experiences in my life that I've had to unlock just to be able to actually see clearly, to understand their influence, let alone to start to actually make deliberate choices and change those. And every day I'm working with people who battle a lack of confidence, who battle a lack of self-respect, self-love, self-belief. And it means they actually, you know, hide or, you know, keep back their talents in the workplace. So what are some of the techniques we can use? And perhaps I'll start with you, Heidi, to, you know, if you were giving Chris advice, if he wasn't as wise as he clearly is in terms of understanding his mind, what are some of the advice you would give him to prepare for this?
I would start with, which you've already said you've done, but is looking at the self-limiting beliefs and then where did you learn them? So making a list of, and oftentimes I'll do this with clients where we just do a brain dump. So it's like, okay, just tell me what's everything your brain is telling you about this. Why can't you do this? Excuse me, where did that come from? Because if we can unpack where you had learned that, who taught you that, you would have had some childhood experience either with an adult on the playground, you know, you totally botched your school play or whatever, like you would have had some experience that told you, and probably more than one, that communicated to you you can't do it. So where did that come from? Where did you learn that? And then what happens is when you bring the awareness to where I actually learned that, you go, oh, that's just an outdated tape. I need to update the tapes and upgrade the software. Because if you realize that comes from, like, or I'm not in control, if say you had a really chaotic childhood or something like that, if you start to realize where this, that's where I learned that. Then you go, is that what I really want to believe? Is that really true? And then you go, no, that's actually not true. And hang on, that maybe was true from ages 0 to 10, but then 10 for the last 3 decades, nope, that's actually not true. And then you get to rewrite it. But the biggest thing I think is to recognize that a lot of what happens in our childhood is you're profoundly helpless in childhood because that's an inherent part of being a kid, right? You don't have your own bank account, you can't get out, you don't have a car, you're small, you're dependent on other people. So a lot of the self-limiting beliefs that we learn in childhood when we are inherently helpless and powerless. But then the problem is we carry those tapes for the rest of our lives. And then you get to something like this where you're doing something really hard and all of these childhood tapes come up going, you can't do this.
Fascinating. Endlessly fascinating. We are going to take a short break, and when we come back again, we'll be talking to Heidi and Chris about the fascinating world of our mind, and we'll dig a little deeper into our unconscious mind.
Ticker.
From Ticker, this is Black Belt Leader. Here's Karen Gately.
Welcome back to Black Belt Leader, where we are here with Chris and Heidi exploring our minds. So, really curious to now take a bit of a deeper dive into our unconscious mind. We've talked a lot before the break about the importance of recognising the thoughts that are perhaps helping or hindering our ability to step into our potential and getting a tough job done. Heidi, I might start with you, in terms of this whole world of our unconscious mind and how we start to tap into how it's impacting our reality.
Well, the first thing you got to think about is the brain, and that it's an antiquated, primal part of us. And the reason why we have unconscious bias, or the reason why we have that unconscious stereotyping or how we make snap judgments, is because it's a mechanism for safety. Because if I take the time to really thoughtfully think about who you are and how you look and how you're speaking to me, I could be dead. Right, so the brain
I could have killed you before you got through the process.
Exactly. So the brain has to do these really quick judge, because I need to know if you're a friend or an enemy. So that's where it comes from millions of years ago. Except now it's 2020. We don't need to be as concerned about those things, but still that old foundation wiring is still there. So that's why we make quick judgments. It's less than 1/10 of a second that the brain makes a judgment on race. So you meet someone and it's 50 milliseconds judging on gender. So it's just quickly your brain is going da, 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 and categorizing people, mainly for safety. So that's where it kind of starts.
Yeah, it's endlessly fascinating. You were saying before the break that, our brains, like software, can actually have bugs. And every now and again, we actually need an upgrade.
Totally.
To actually be able to remove some of the things that are not serving us. I was born in South Africa, and it's been the whole issue of unconscious bias around race, for example, is something I'm fascinated by and deeply passionate about us overcoming. So what are some of the things we can do? So our brain says, oh, scary person, I'm in danger. I need to react. How do we, because I've certainly had conversations with people that will feel that reaction and feel really bad about themselves. It's like, oh, I shouldn't feel like that, let alone behave like that. How do we start to change that?
The first thing is awareness, which is just to have the observing the thought. So observing, I just had this thought that I think you're unsafe because your skin color is different to mine, or you're male and I'm female, and I find that threatening, or whatever. Just to have the awareness, like people underestimate how powerful awareness is, just to bring it into your awareness. I had that thought. Be kind and compassionate to yourself, because unconscious bias is not something you can control. Everyone's brain has it. So just having that first, awareness that this is what I did. Then challenging the thought, getting curious about it. Where does that come from? Again, going back to where did I learn that? Like the story. So what's the story I'm telling myself? So because your skin color is different, I'm threatened by you? Hang on. Is that what I really want to think? Is that actually true? No, that's not. That comes from, my racist parents and them pounding that into me as a kid, or the culture I grew up in, or the country I grew up in, or whatever. So it's awareness, and then challenging it and being curious about where it comes from. And then if, like, say in a management situation or a leadership position, run it past someone else. So saying, I just thought that this woman who we were thinking of hiring, I didn't think she'd be a good candidate because she's a single mom. And I realized maybe I'm having a little bit of unconscious bias there. What are your thoughts? And if you check it out with someone else, then you can kind of go, oh, no, that's wrong.
And reprogram it. So Chris, are there, pardon me, unconscious beliefs you've held that you've discovered about yourself, that you think have really helped you to turn the dial and step forward?
Oh, look, absolutely. I think anyone that embarks on anything, whether it's life, business, or recreational, doing a run, or a lot of this stemmed from me actually 2 years ago when I set up my own business. As a business owner, a lot of people there will know the trials and tribulations and the questions and the stresses that it puts on you. So I think going back to what you were talking about, awareness, one of the things that's probably led to me from a lifestyle perspective of being here, and again, part of the reason why I'm doing this, is to create that awareness or be aware of it. I'm a big advocate of mindfulness and meditation. So, for me, you talk about software upgrades, you've got to turn your phone off for it to be upgraded. So for me, my spiritual meditation journey of really sitting with those negative thoughts, and you feel it physically. You can actually feel it. And then how that manifests itself in different thoughts. Whereas actually when you sit there and just move it on,
Yeah.
or just treat it as it is, which is a thought.
Yes.
You know, and then you can replace
It's not
it.
necessarily your reality,
No.
Yes.
and that's the key point.
Yes.
No, key. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, going through this business journey, and then obviously where I am now, I'm very conscious of these thoughts. But, you know, as Heidi said, I think it's about creating that awareness about it and that insatiable curiosity as to why am I feeling like that,
Yeah.
and changing it.
Yeah.
I think the reality is, you know, you get a little bit older, you've got to look after yourself, that little voice, that anxiety, that, you know, whatever it might be, that little gremlin we alluded to earlier. How are people out there, you know, addressing that?
Yeah.
Are they
It's
feeding
fundamental.
it, or
Yeah.
are they actually trying to, you know?
And again, I
tone it
see
down?
that just about every day with the people I work with. And you talk about, you know, being a business owner and going on that journey. A lot of my clients, you know, the biggest obstacle to them even having the energy they need to keep going are these voices that just keep draining them, that keep telling them this is tough, you know, and actually moving past entertaining those thoughts and choosing to entertain thoughts that are more powerful. You know, my experience is one of the easy, well, not necessarily easy, but it's one of the switches, you know, that we can push. So Heidi, you know, again, in your experience, helping people to bring the unconscious to the to the conscious, and then to put disciplines in place, what are some of the techniques you would recommend people use to build more confidence, overcome these fears or limiting beliefs?
I mean, I'm obviously a massive fan of therapy.
Yes, so am I.
I do it for a living, so I obviously believe it, and I've done decades of it myself, so I obviously believe in it. Because a lot of those beliefs, you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And like unconscious, you don't even realize that that's how you think. So oftentimes therapy or reading, like it doesn't have to be therapy, but I just find therapy is quicker to sit opposite someone and you say something like, you know, like say money mindset, money, you know, limiting beliefs that you have around money or finances or whatever, or your self-worth. And then you say it to another person and they hear it and they're like, what? Like, where did, you know, like, or, you know, all men are evil or so, what?
Yes.
Where did you get that, you know, from childhood or past relationships, and then it causes you to stop and think about it.
Yeah.
So therapy, books, talking to other people. I think my favorite word when I'm trying to challenge unconscious stuff is get curious. Just get curious. Where does that come from? Why did I just have that thought? And like you said, just recognizing that it's a thought. It's not true. It's just a thought.
And it's not you.
No. And
You
who
know,
am I?
Your thought is not you.
Exactly. Who
necessarily.
am I then?
Yeah.
I'm the one who sees the thoughts. I'm
That's
the
right.
observer. So I just look at the thoughts, sort of, the analogy I like is you're looking out a window and a bird flies through the window, and that the bird is the thought.
Yeah.
And I can jump on the back of the bird and then fly around, or I can just sit in my house looking out the window, watching the birds fly through, and I can just go, oh, there was a bluebird.
I actually
you know.
am endlessly entertained by my own thoughts.
Well, that's a gift.
It really is. It really is. I've been very grateful at many points in my life to be able to be having an emotional reaction and observe it at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I've been in situations where I've been crying or cracking it, and there's other voices going, okay, that's a little bit over the top right now, you know, and actually being able to see it as a choice, I think has made the biggest difference in my life and many of my clients' lives, you know. And I remember when I started my business, I got to the point where I had more evidence that I was going to succeed than evidence I was going to fail.
Yes.
And it was purely off the back of that. I went, you know what, I'll work it out as we go, but I have enough. And so when I'm working with a lot of clients and I hear these beliefs, one of the questions I ask them is, where's your evidence for that? Like, why are you banking that as real? And 9 times out of 10, people just look at me and go, I have no clue.
But where I think society and business has changed a lot in the last 10 years, even if you look at, you know, the support that you need as a business owner to give your staff from a mental health well-being and things like that. You know, why is there a stigma attached
Absolutely.
for people going to seek counsel and advice
I know.
from a therapy, whether it's meditation, whether it's spiritual healing, whatever it might be, you know, why is there a stigma attached to that?
I think it's because we still believe it's weak.
Yes.
You know, to struggle with our mind, we see as weak as opposed to human. So again, the conversations I'm having with people is, newsflash, we're not actually robots.
Yeah.
You know, and stress and pressure. What do you see in the space around stigma and people's fear when they first come to see you? Are they humiliated? Are they embarrassed?
Definitely. And I think it's hard. I'm from LA originally, which like everyone goes to therapy in LA. So it's not, there's not as much stigma as there is, I think, in Australia.
Yeah.
But still there's definitely stigma. But what I always say to people is the thought that you should be able to do life and navigate all of the challenges that come with life is like saying, just because I have teeth, I'm able to perform a root canal. Just because you have teeth does not mean that you have that knowledge. You have to go to see a dentist, someone who study this. Same thing, study this for 8 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it of navigating life and the skills and challenges of getting through life. It's not common knowledge.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both. Chris, good luck. We will be thinking of you,
We'll come back in
supporting
3
you.
months. You can see the transformation.
Absolutely. We're going to hold you to that. We're definitely going to hold you to that. And look, it's a great thing you're doing. You know, again, it's fabulous that people are willing to face tough things and self-sacrifice for the sake of other people. It's great. And hopefully your friends and family are recovering well, and hopefully they have enough toilet paper. Because that's going to be another issue for all of us, clearly. Well, thank you again. That's all we have for Black Belt Leader today. Join us next time on the show where we're going to be talking about executive education and why it matters, even if you're the CEO or the chairman of the board, to keep learning, to keep getting better, to keep evolving as a person. So we'll have a couple of guests on to share with us how you can continue to do that throughout your career. Thanks for joining us.
This is Ticker, your new source for news.